We are asleep. Our life is a dream. But once in a while, we wake up enough to know that we're dreaming. We are asleep. Our life is a dream. But once in a while, we wake up enough to know that we're dreaming.
When we calm our mind, we can change the world, and we'll never feel alone, never alone, forever. When we calm our mind, we can change the world, and we never feel alone, never alone, forever. When we calm our mind, we can change the world. What do you think, Gabriella?
Yeah, obviously, I think when we calm our hair, we can change the world. You know?
The same for me.
Metaphor, right? It's yeah, you have no hair. So, I mean, obviously it's all an illusion anyway. But the point is that how do we truly connect with the deep resonance and silence that is within us, that is beyond all of what we see, that is beyond all of what is? And how do we reach that point in the moments of chaos? And today we are in a collective chaos. And we have it on so many levels. We have it on a personal level, you know, the relationship with uncertainty. We have it on a collective level, the relationship with the uncertainty of COVID, the relationship with the uncertainty of our economical systems, our financial structures, our well-being, our schools, our academia. So this is truly the test. And I want to say the test to create a fertile relationship with ourselves, with our true self, that is in the midst of chaos, that represents who we really are as beings. So how do we get there? And how do we experience calmness so that we can use the tools that we already know, our inner resilience, to get through these times? You know, I think that's an essential point today.
Yes. How can we be more simple?
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, we live in a world, as you say, and it's totally true. We live in a huge spiritual war. It's more than a chaos. It's a war. It's an economic war. It's a bacteriologic virus war, whenever. So how can we survive? How can we live? And this is the reason why spirituality must be totally readapted to our world. We must be more simple. We are too much complicated for nothing. And we are in a situation when you see today 48, 49 millions American people lose their job since a few weeks. So it's extremely difficult. So we cannot make any effort. And the fact to be more kind, it's a beautiful way to calm the mind. Today we will talk about that, how kindness and calmness are interconnected. When we see you, Gabriella, you are the example of the kindness. You are the face of the kindness. Hello, Evelyn. So good to see you. You are
everyone who are connecting with us virtually tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you to Angela. Thank you to Debra. Debra, we are with you. We know it's not easy moment. And it will be special today because we have the chance to host an exceptional scientist. I will say a spiritual scientist.
Yeah.
She's a pioneer, an exceptional doctor, Dr. Nathalie Lee Dyer. She is incredible. But before, I think we can start with Deepak. And it's beautiful when Deepak talk about kindness, calmness, how it's connected. And after, we will ask the question to Dr. Nathalie.
Extract coming up. Oh, Natalie's coming up. Okay, great. So you're first.
Hello.
So we will have Deepak after. Okay, but Natalie prefer to arrive before Deepak. So
we'll just go with it.
First, we have a question because you are PhD, you are an exceptional scientist, specialist for the brain, for the emotion. Just the first question, and we invite everyone to ask questions to you. According to you, how can we explain that kindness and calmness are interconnected?
That's a really good question. It's not one that I've studied in my research specifically, but absolutely the research has shown that when we are more relaxed, when we're in a more calm state of mind, we're going to be more kind to other people, more considerate, and more compassionate. Anyone can really understand this when we're in a stressful situation. We're more mindless. We're not tuned to people. We're less tuned to their emotions and their needs as well. We become sort of selfish, and the brain reflects this as well. And our emotion centers are off the charts, and we're running in a past future. We're not really here, and we're not present for each other and ourselves. So when we are in a calm state of mind, we're able to be mindful, present, tuned into others, and we become a better person.
It's interesting because we always talk about, we always say the common language, calm down. And, a lot of people are like, well, it's very easy to say, but how do you be calm? That's the thing. Like, so how do you measure calmness? And
well, in psychology, we measure calmness by our self-report. So we know when we're calm or not, usually, but not always. We also have physiological indicators. So the electrical activity of our skin increases. So that's how we do lie detection, for instance. We measure the conductivity of the skin. When we're stressed, when we're lying, we're more stressed. It's not true of some people. Some sociopathic people are very good at lying and not showing stress. So it's a mix of our subjective experience and physiological indicators. And we can see this in the brain as well. When we're more stressed, our more primal areas of the brain that are involved in survival are online, whereas our more calm, quiet, contemplative parts of the brain, which tend to be the more regions involved in attention, are not as active. So we can measure it neurophysiologically and psychologically.
You say, Natalie, that, for example, calmness and kindness, it's a very good way for suicide prevention. To develop and kindness, it's a very good way for suicide prevention to reduce the suicide.
People that are suffering internally are not as kind to others, understandably, because they're going through so much. But the reverse side is that we take the effort to be more kind, and then we're more kind to ourselves. Sometimes that's what it takes for people. It's easier to be kind to others than to the self. And when we're kind to others, we're connecting with them, and we're connecting with the truth of who we really are, which is one humanity, one connected consciousness. So through those acts, we can connect to the truth rather than being stuck like a lot of people are. And it happens to all of us, stuck in the ego mind or the little mind or the separate sense of self that is actually temporary. And instead, we can connect to the impermanent self, or the permanent self, I should say, of which we are all a part.
Natalie, before to develop your research, because Gabriella and me, we have a lot of questions about your fantastic research about compassion and calmness. Is it possible to explain to us in the brain how calmness and kindness are interconnected? It's a sort of interconnection between cognitive process. This is the explain.
It's somewhat easy to explain. The brain is a very distributed, lots of different networks going on. But in general, when we're calm, these areas of the brain are more active in the frontal area in terms of planning, what we call executive function, being able to be more cognitively clear. Our thinking is better. And that also relates to what's called cognitive empathy, or being able to understand other people. So the more we're calm and these brain regions are activated, the more we can actually tune into others and understand them and be able to be there for them and hopefully help them in some way.
We have a question for the audience also, because Gabriella and me, we ask questions to the audience, and it's an interactive exchange. For you, how calmness and kindness are connected? If you feel there is a connection when you are calmer, you are more kind. It could be interesting to have the feedback of our friend audience. And I think, Gabriella, can't wait to ask questions to you about your research, your fantastic research.
You know, it's fascinating for me because I've always experienced kindness as really a way of being, not a way of doing. And I think it's a fine line because people are, you know, feel obligated to be kind, and that's when it isn't a spontaneous way of being, and that therefore it becomes an obligation. And what I found is my inner research has been the following, that the more I'm calm, meaning the more I meditate and I explore self-awareness, the more I'm able to be in that space of being, I am automatically, without even thinking, in a space of kindness. So is there a way to explain that more than just being it? Because I feel that, you know, all my research is in being. You know?
Yeah, and I would say, based on my research with universal love, is that, which is unconditional love for all of existence. So it's the all. It's similar to, some people call it divine love or agape, even love of God, love of existence. Is that meditation and being in that state of this interconnection is highly correlated with being kind to others and also forgiving others and being altruistic toward others. And it's a natural process, just like you said. It bursts forth from this space where we're recognizing that we are each other.
That's beautiful.
We have a beautiful question from a friend of us, Michel Pascal. He wrote, as an adult survivor of child abuse, if I may ask for more understanding, are there two different PTSD forms, one for veteran and another for survivor? Natalie, what could be your answer?
I'm not quite sure if the question is about if there's a veteran form of PTSD, but they usually get grouped as PTSD as a whole. So depending, no matter what the trauma is. However, there is what's called CPTSD, which is complex PTSD, and that's when there are multiple forms of trauma within one experience, which is certainly the case during war. You may witness someone suffering, a prisoner of war, for instance, but you also have to do some violent acts. So there's complex trauma as a part of that, and that can be quite difficult to treat more than trauma originating from one source. Either way, it's all a challenging thing, and I think recently we've all sort of been through a collective trauma as well. So PTSD and trauma are definitely hot topics right now, and I'm seeing a lot more treatments that are spiritually oriented, because it is about putting us back together again, being whole again. So in psychology, that would be sort of repairing the psyche and putting the fragments back together again. But and a spiritual side would be just becoming whole, becoming our true self again. And that's very challenging when we go through trauma. Absolutely. So I'm not sure what the question exactly was.
It is beautiful what you develop and your research about kindness. You know what explains Sainte Thérèse of Lisieux, Little Flower. Sainte Thérèse, she talks all time about the power of the little intention. She say, if I feel not good, she doesn't wrote stress in her time, but she say, when I feel anger or my heart is not good, she say, I use the power of a little intention. I have an attitude, very concrete. I help another nun, not kind, for example, or I have a little action, very kind, to help someone, or she said to help a flower, to help a tree, to have an action, she said, with an insect. If there is a little insect, suddenly she wanted to help in the Carmel. The power, she say, of the little action change totally our mind like that. What you think about that, Natalie? The power of the little action in kindness.
Yeah, it really matters a lot because our brain is looking for direction from our sensory information. So what's going on that we can perceive through our senses, but also our dialogue about it and our interpretation of that is what really, really matters. So if a lot of people have a dialogue in their mind all day that's quite negative, and it's going to dictate your physiology. It's going to dictate the rest of your body and how you feel and how you even digest food. And if you're telling your body, for instance, that you're not safe. So if we're stressed, we're not trusting life. So there's some lack of safety there. So the body's going to be in a certain mode where it's looking for threat, and it's not maybe repairing tissues or detoxing, and these really important things. So the idea of setting an intention or a seed or an affirmation even changes that chemistry in the brain, which has a lot of cascades in the body, positive cascades in the body. And then we'll start to notice I don't know how this actually works in terms of the physics, but we will start to notice that our world reflects back to us more positively as well. So we're really at the very edge of understanding the power of intention, but it absolutely matters. And the field of medicine knows this with the placebo effect, for instance. So those little seeds, they grow, and they're very, very important. So that's a really good quote from St. Teresa. Thanks, Michelle.
Is there I know that, we keep on hearing these habitual practices. So the power of habit plus intention. Is there a minimum? I keep on hearing 21 days, this and that, but is there a minimum, I would say, self-discipline one can have with the little intentions and the little activities one needs to do to activate certain aspects of well-being?
Yeah, definitely. So the way the brain works is the more you think a thought or the more you do a behavior, the more likely you are to do it in the future. And you're building these neural connections and strengthening them, which is really, really powerful. And so you can change the way you think. And there's some inertia there. So you have to take some time to go against the grain of what maybe has been developed over years of thinking that hasn't served you. And they do say 21 days. I've heard 28 days, and this is for behavioral change. I'm sure that depends on the frequency. But I always recommend that anytime you check in and you're not feeling well, something feels off, you're in a sort of a bad mood, is to just do some investigation into the thoughts that led you there. So every single time, and then backtracking, and then questioning, is that true? Why did I think that? Usually it's not that big of a deal. It's a negative seed that has grown into something, into a bad emotion, but it's just a silly thought, maybe something you just have to do that you haven't gotten around to, and then reframing it. So getting this every single time, and eventually the brain will naturally think more positively, or think in a way that's going to be healthier and better for others as well.
This is beautiful explain. This is a beautiful introduction to listen Deepak. What Deepak will explain about the kindness, the compassion, how it is so important.
Thank you, Natalie. That was lovely.
Thank you, Natalie. We see you just after.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, first of all, it's very important to have this conversation. And this conversation needs to be part of our collective conversation. It needs to be on social media. It needs to be in films. It needs to be in education. It needs to be in schools. And at the cost of seeming overly sentimental, the conversation has to be turned into the conversation of love. Yeah. What is love? What is compassion? what is empathy, what is joy, what is peace. And it starts with empathy. Empathy means to feel what another feels, to actually feel it viscerally. When you feel what somebody else feels, your biology and their biology resonate. That's a part of the brain called the limbic system, and there's limbic resonance. So if you look at two people engaged in an empathetic experience, you'll see that the brains lock in, they get entangled. Empathy leads to compassion, because empathy by itself is just feeling what you're feeling. Compassion is the desire to alleviate suffering. And once there's compassion, then that gives birth to love. And once there is love and action at the same time, that leads to healing. Love without action is meaningless. Action without love is irrelevant. But love in action heals everything.
We are back. Love in action is everything.
To be concrete, to be
it's. I think it's the mantra. You know, the new mantra of our lives, the new mantra of this new world we're developing, that we're co-creating together in this chaos. It's love in action. Love is the only thing that is actually worth anything. You know.
Yes.
And it's money is not getting us health. None of these things ever will really create, heaven, as they so call it. The only heaven that we experience is how we interact with one another. And when it's based on pure love, it becomes love in action. And that is the beautiful mantra and a beautiful way to live, to aspire to live.
It's so important what you say, Gabriella. So true and so important, because it's too much difficult, our world.
Yeah.
So everyone, when we talk to someone, we have the responsibility to be kind, to be calm. When we go in a Starbucks, we buy a coffee. Hello, how are you? This is my favorite mantra. How are you? When we say, how are you to someone, how many times we don't pay attention? How are you? How are you? We don't care. How are you? It's a beautiful mantra, because the difficulty, it's after the talk show, we are catched by our mental habit. We know in reality, we must be kind, we must be calm, but we forget. So the obstacle is the amnesia. We forget. We would like to do, but we forget. So some mantra, we need some practices so simple to don't forget. And for example, how are you? You say, how are you to someone? How are you to Reverend Dr. Temple-Hayes? In a few seconds, she will join us.
Oh, there I am.
How are you, my Temple?
Nice to see you.
Namaste. Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you, my love?
I'm doing great. I always am. My happy comes on even more when I see the two of you, my kindred spirits. I do miss you in the physical. I look forward to when we can travel again and visit each other. But anyway, we're kind of talking about. I love Dr. Natalie. She's so brilliant. But at the end of the day, regardless, it really comes to what we're willing to practice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It comes to that it's every day. And I was thinking about how fortunate I was many years ago when I was on the international circuit and I taught stress management. And I was at a place in my life that I was actually thinking that, as a spiritual leader, that I was actually going on the road, and I sure was helping. This conversation sure was helping a lot of people. And that may or may not be true. But the interesting thing is that in sacred humility was one of the best things that ever happened to me. because I developed tools in my life that I draw from every day.
Beautiful.
And so as you were sharing, I was thinking about a couple of those tools that I use. We used to say you develop, these files in your file cabinet. And that might be true for some people, but many of you would think that it's in your iCloud and you're going to pull it down, you see. But one of the things when there would be a problem that I learned to ask myself, and notice I didn't say it's not a problem. That's what people often misunderstand, is I didn't say it wasn't a problem. I said there was a problem, but I wanted to look at the problem differently, because it's how you look at the problem that causes even more pain, more sorrow, more suffering, correct? And so one of the things I developed for me is that I would ask myself, is it going to make my 45-minute speech? Because at the end of your life, when someone is making a speech about you or your eulogy, even if you're very famous, the best you're going to get at a memorial service is going to be about an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
And so I would ask myself, is this problem going to make that 45-minute speech? Oh, don't you remember that time that Tipple was in the paper and somebody wrongly accused her? Is it going to make my speech? And if the answer was no, and so I pretty much guarantee you that it's always been the answer was no, then I would be able to say, then let me put this in perspective. It's a blurb, it's a window, it's a moment of time in the season of, the many lifetimes that I have had and may have. So I've always found that immensely helpful. And the other thing is that things happen to all of us. And though we don't have control over what happens to us, we have control over how much attentiveness we give to what happens to us.
That's true.
And I think that is a deciding factor, whether someone you perceive has hurt your feelings, or they've taken away your contract, or, you got a disappointment because you thought that someone was going to do something contractually with you and they changed their minds. You can make that last an hour. You can make it last a day. And sadly, some people can make it last, 30 and 40 years.
Yeah.
So it's the same action of what has happened, but it's a decision. And I think this can be confusing in people's psychology. I think they misunderstand us. But at the end of the day, it really is about how long you decide it's going to stay in your life. And I think that's one of the reasons that in my years of speaking so overtly about being an alcoholic is because to me it's almost part of my comedic act, and it's so part of my journey. And when I speak of it, it's like I'm smiling and I have a little dance going on inside because I'm so happy I survived myself. But I gave that dedication of whatever that was in those years, 15 years of my life. And so when I thought to myself, I did that. I gave it all I had. I gave it everything I had. It was at times very messy, but it's done now. And I'm not going to spend another day, another week, another year of my life living in the shame or the guilt of that story. I've done that already. And so this is part of when we look at, as Meister Eckhart would say, that often spirituality is not adding one more new thing on. And there's times we do that, but it's not just adding new things on. It's also subtracting and letting go of certain parts of our nature that we have developed and how we respond to things. And the only difference between one person and another in many cases is that that particular person has spent the time, invested the time in getting the skills that's needed.
I agree.
You understand that?
Oh, yeah, I agree.
That's being helpful, because I've walked away from car accidents. I've had the police officers, everybody in the city knew me. Let's wait and see what she's going to do. Do you know? And I mean, I was like a living on the edge of some type of death wish for a long time. But there comes a time that, in the glory of your own grace of your life, that there's a humility that comes forth. And we're real torn in our culture, because there's a lot of people that want you to feel inadequate or bad about really caring about yourself. You know, that this act of, they want you to believe that it is selfish to love yourself. I would, in the person that became alive again, and in the person that didn't kill herself, as in me, I would debate and say that that was only when my life started to make sense. Because I began to see that what you feel about you is how you project onto everything that it or those or the moment also feels about you. Yes, it's that kind of resonation. I mean, think about it, Gabriella. I mean, you know, you always look like you just walked out of a magazine. But I think about, you know, we have, many of us have different assets than the other, and that's okay. But I think about the day, you know, when I look in the mirror and I go, look at you, you know, your light is on. And, you know, hey, for, you know, the age you are and things, I mean, you're looking pretty good, girl, you know. And so you go down the street and somebody says, it's so good to see you. And, well, you look great. And you say, thank you for noticing. That's your space, right? But on another day, you look in that same mirror, you're the same person.
Yeah.
And you go, oh gosh.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, what were you thinking? And your hair's got too much blonde in it, and that shirt, and what in the world? And please, I mean, I don't even know at this point if no carbs is the answer. You know, there's something needs to happen. You walk down the same street and you run into a person that says, it's so good to see you. You look wonderful. And your first thought is, why are you telling me something that isn't true?
There is a beautiful example of what you said, Temple, a sequence in the film that we do, Gabriella and me, I Am Never Alone. This is the moment when Gabriella met you in the film. I must say, this is one of my favorite sequences of the film. And we can watch this sequence now. And after, I would like to ask you a question to you, Temple, and also to Natalie, to cross all together. But first, let's enjoy this amazing sequence when I must explain to the audience, when we do this sequence, there is no script, there is no rehearsal, we prepare nothing. It's a pure improvisation between Gabriella and you.
Yes.
I love it.
It's coming.
I feel you. And yet, there's a big difference between feeling you and saying, I know how you feel. No one knows how you feel. No one. No one. And what I know for sure is there's really no words. There's no magic words right now. Only the walk that you're experiencing. And I really ask you in advance to forgive people in advance for the things they say. There's something about death that makes people want to talk. Yes, so you've already been having some of that. And you just, as they're talking, just don't bring it into your being. Just hold this sacred space for yourself, you see. In this moment, there are no teachers and there are no students. There's the raw of life, the absolute raw of life. The best medicine is water. Water out here, right? Water out here, water and listening to water, going to the ocean, going to the water, hearing the water. It's the second chakra, it's the emotional being, and it brings a beauty of healing to you. And drumming, it will bring you back to the memory of what it's like to be born, because you're having your moments right now. I feel it, of whether or not you want to be here. And you must know, you must be here. You must be here. It is enough that your son has given his life. Don't give yours, except for making his life matter. Because if you stay alive, if you stay alive, then he stays alive. And everything that you loved about him, everything, you be that. Every quality, every emotion, every moment, you be that, and he will live through you. I see that for you. I see that deeply.
I mean,
Wow.
wow. Temple, wow.
Wow.
Like,
That's pretty powerful.
wow. I see this extract and I see the scene and I feel you. And I feel who you are as the giving spiritual leader that you are, but also as who you are besides the spiritual leader within you, and I know I'm playing a character, but I know that my character needed that,
Yes.
That's what she needed. It's beautiful. It's simple, so powerful and simple.
There is something very, very interesting in this sequence, and it was also the reason why I wanted to share with Natalie. There is what you do, Temple. It's very interesting. You don't give tips. You don't give advices. You don't make a long talk and complicate. You open the book of the nature.
Yes.
It's very shamanic when you talk about the ocean and the waves, etc., and the water. And I use the word shamanic because I know how Natalie, she make a lot of an amazing work between shamanism, science, spirituality. And I think, Temple, what you do in the film at this moment, just the sequence that we see, this is for me the future of the spirituality. When someone is in the suffering, you don't give a lot of talk. You don't ask questions. You are present, but you give all your love and you open the book of the nature. When we listen the waves, suddenly there is a natural cleansing. And just to be in contact with the ocean calm our mind and reduce the suffering of Gabriella. I must say that when I have filmed You Temple with Gabriella, I was crying. I was crying. But beyond the film, I would like this exchange between Natalie and You Temple and Gabriella. We say all time, spirituality must be adapted to our world. One of the best teacher that I have learned last year, it was a prisoner at Amity Foundation. He said to me, Michel, if you say to us, take a deep breath, be resilient, etc., you are not respectful. You don't see how the life is difficult, just you talk and you talk and you talk. That I love in what you do in the film Temple. You don't talk. You bring Gabriella in the situation. It's a very ancient shamanic technique that in shamanism, in the tribes. What you feel about that temple? What is for you the future of spirituality? And also for Natalie, I would like you can cross and exchange about this question, Natalie.
Yeah, I just want to say, Temple, that was pretty amazing, and I do agree that was shamanic, especially with the water, but connecting deeply, connecting to that space where there is the one, is the shamanic work, and the language. We're at a point where we have so many different belief systems historically, so many different cultures, that we need to go beyond language and we need to connect to that space. And yeah, that was just incredible. And I think, adapting, everything does need to be adapted to this world where we're in the Western culture where everything is very stressful, very achievement based, very ego based. And we're all sort of hoping that these systems change, but we need to change them from within. So finding a common language that goes beyond the differences between our cultures, and works through symbology. The symbolism of water, everyone can relate to that, is super key at this point in time. So thank you. Thank you for your incredible work and the way that was amazing.
No.
For you, Temple, so this is like that for you, the future of spirituality, to develop something very simple but very profound. Not a lot of talk for nothing, but to be concrete. What, as said Natalie, shamanism, it's a relation with the mother nature, beyond any blah blah, any belief system. I am like this, I am resilient and not, and do this. Shut up. We need more advices. We need less advices.
Yes, you're so right. If talking was the answer, there would be no suicides, there would be no depression. I mean, you're right. I mean, if the TED Talks they're great, and all the information is wonderful, and sound bites and great lectures and information has transformed a lot of us. But the deeper secret in life, at least for me, is realizing that my pain is my friend, not my enemy. And it is the ability to sit in that pain that is an opening, not a closing. And we're trained the opposite way in our society, that pain is definitely uncomfortable and we'll do whatever we can not to feel it. And I feel it. And I've been one of those people too. So I get it. But you get to a place where you cross the bridge and you say that the way to express really and understand the depth of what we call the spirit of myself, the spirit of oneself, is to sit with the pain as the sacred friend, so it will develop and open the heart and the conversation, the space. The moment that Gabriella and I were having was beyond words, and it was beyond basic listening skills, not autobiographical. It wasn't autobiographical. It wasn't, I'm going to repeat to you, did I hear what you said?
Yeah.
Trying to fix her as she was looking at me. The typical things of let's just make you feel more confused by just chatting. When a person's at that level, there's really no words. And even if there were words, they can't hear them. So it's going deeper to hear what is the soul. What is the soul wanting to be relating right now? What is the soul wanting to share? And it's much more than I am going to set out just to fix with my toolbox what I consider this temporary discomfort of someone else's pain, but what is being heard. And from that listening, more often than not, I've found there's just so many different unique answers. Example, a woman has told me that most of her life she's been depressed. And there would have been a time that I would have gone, well, I would like to advise you to these 3 specialists. And I'm not saying that's not okay, but you asked me what I do. And so I will listen. I will go inside myself and I will go, is there something that's wanting to reveal itself?
Maybe the
And
audience,
in that moment, though, then I would get an answer often. And I said to her, I'm getting that your depression is not your own.
Yeah.
I'm getting that it belongs to a matriarch. That's what I'm getting. But then I don't keep talking. And I let the person tell me, because if a person is telling us, that's the learning. It's not what we told them. It's what they're telling us. That means that there's integration that's possible. And she said, you are so right. About 80% of my depression is not mine at all. It's a false identity I've been stating about myself all my life. She's like a different person now.
Yeah, right there. That's a huge shift
Mhm.
that occurs.
Yeah.
You're disengaging that narrative that's telling the body and the brain a false story.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
I have a question for the audience. Do you think that we must adapt spirituality to our world? Do you think that we must recreate a new way to feel better every day? It's a debate that we can have with our audience. Natalie, I would like to go back in a few minutes about your fantastic research. I have the chance to have filmed you, and you will be in Mind Dive app that we do with Gabriella and Temple to talk about your research. Can you explain to us your research about compassion in a few minutes? Because it's a revolution what you did.
Oh, thanks. So I've been the first, me and Mario Beauregard, who I believe you've also spoken with quite a bit. The two of us conducted the first study on universal love, which I should backtrack a bit. When you study anything scientifically, you have to first, quote, prove that it exists as a construct. So if we were to just go and study universal love, our scientific peers might say, well, how do you know that's even a thing? So universal love is defined as unconditional love for all of existence. It's highly related to compassionate love, divine love. There's a few different names for it, unlimited love. And so to study it, we confirmed scientifically that it's an actual construct. So we did that through a bunch of fun statistical math. And now it allows us to say that universal love does exist as a thing, which is lovely. And we found that it's highly related to what we would expect. So propensity to forgive others, altruism, decrease in stress, more positive emotions. And the theory is that, and other researchers have proposed this under different terms, that universal love is the underlying nature of who we are. And if we can get to that state, then the rest of our psychology and physiology follows in a harmonic, homeostatic way. So what we've done now is enabled through a scale, which we call the universal love scale, we enabled the study of universal love. Of course, you can't measure something like that with a questionnaire, but what we're doing is relating it to the embodiment of universal love. So what does that do emotionally? What does that do behaviorally, cognitively? So we think more positive thoughts toward others. We're more well-wishing. We're more likely to help someone. So we've related to all these wonderful things. And now the hope is that we can get funding to study what's going on in the brain during universal love, what's going on with our immune system. Does it help with telomeres, which is a physiological indicator of aging, for example? So we've got a bunch of these projects that hopefully we can get funded. It's a difficult thing to get funded because it can't be patented and sold and put in a pill form. But the hope is that we open up a whole new field of study. Pardon me?
Imagine unconditional love in a pill form.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. We take so many supplements that waste our, excuse my language, time, I'd rather go out and have like good karma points for my unconditional love pill. Therefore I can transform my presence, because I believe through presence you can change the world. You don't need to talk, like you were saying, Temple and Michel. We don't need to engage in conversation, but we can be that presence. So let's help. I hope that funding gets found, I hope.
Yes, absolutely. At least at this point, we've opened up the field as a field. Okay, we can now study universal love, and there are some other scientists that are studying it with certain disorders, eating disorders, depression, seeing if we can increase universal love. Are we helping some of these issues? So we'll see.
Are you doing it with Harvard? Is that the university you're attached to?
That's the study. Yeah, it went through Harvard. Now I just work through Harvard. I'm not an employee anymore, so it will be through a different university.
Got it. So I have a challenge for you, Mario. Would it be interesting for you to measure or quantify, or I definitely say measure, the impact of the presence of being of Amma, the hugging saint, who her whole life is about presence of being, presence of love. I've been an OT of hers for the last 15 years, so I spend a lot of time with her every year in different countries, and I see it, and I've seen how the impact she has on me, but also people, because I just sit next to her. And I see during the hug, the embrace, the darshan, the transformation of before and after. And that's like a 30-second to a minute moment in time. It would be interesting to measure that.
Yeah, I would. She's a perfect example of what I call universal love in action. And we've used a quote from her about universal love to try to get some funding. But
oh, good.
That would be great. I did see Amma in person once. I didn't get a hug, unfortunately, but when she walked out, I arranged that. Oh, I would love that. That would be amazing. When she came out, it was like a wall of compassion just hit me, and just the tears started flowing. And so I know that she's the real deal for sure. That's amazing.
I'm sure she would love to partake in the study. Let me know. We'll connect after, and we'll connect it her, because she has one of her universities that she started. She's the chancellor of, are all about love in action. So what you study is to serve. So it's fascinating the amount of research that they back and all that. So maybe you could do a partnership.
Before,
I would love that.
Before to say bye-bye all together, just I would like to watch with you again something exceptional, who really calm the mind, something who help us to open the third eyes, to be in God. This is to see again the celestial art of Romayo. Natalie, you must see deeply. Romayo is probably one of the most exceptional painter of the world in Buddhism and beyond Buddhism. He's beyond Buddhism. But last week it was a special guest for Gabriella, Temple, and me. But in 1 minute, I think it's like Temple in the film. It's like what you study also, Natalie. Mm-hmm. We talk to adapt spirituality to our world. We talk too much for nothing. We must be more simple, more profound, and instead of to talk here, we must touch here. This is the shamanic approach This is exactly what does Romayo. Take a look, and just after we say a last bye-bye all together. We would like to ask you a question all the night, Natalie. We love you.
Love you too.
Mm. So beautiful, Romayo. So beautiful.
So nice. I also love the music.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Amazing music, and being in his presence was just like, oh my gosh, it was like
Yeah, he was intense.
intense. Yeah.
It's like,
It's exceptional to see a real tulku, what we name a tulku in Buddhism, an authentic reincarnation. It's absolutely exceptional.
Mhm.
Real tulku are so rare. It's exceptional to have the presence of Romayo. So we were so honored. To finish in a 1 minute. Oh, thank you, Ingrid. We love you, Ingrid. We will host you soon with Gabriella. A last question to each of you, to Gabriella, to Natalie, and to Temple. Today I ask the question. And for you, Gabriella, what is the best action that you can do immediately to calm the mind of someone?
smile.
Mm.
Just smile. You know, even with the tears, every time I cry and I see someone cry, I automatically get immersed in their tears.
Mm.
But I smile because I know, I feel it, that when I smile, the heart there's just something that's connected to this muscle here, and it just opens. And then the presence of being occurs, and you don't need words. You can just sit there and be.
So beautiful, Gabriella. So beautiful. You make me cry. So beautiful. For you, Natalie, what can you do in 1 minute to help someone to calm the mind?
That's hard to follow up with that. That was beautiful. For me, I would say just being present and listening, staying connected to myself and not getting involved with the narratives, while still listening and being there, and being there for them, of course, but being that presence so that they can more easily connect with their own inner presence as well. And of course, that will make them calm. So me being calm, and they'll be calm, hopefully.
So beautiful, Natalie. We love you, Natalie. So beautiful. And
Love
for
you.
you, my temple, what can you do in 1 minute to calm the mind of someone?
I can calm my own mind and create an aura field that there is a space of calmness all around us. And I run energy into their space, into their moment, into their hearts, in that awareness. And as I am doing that, I am affirming the vibrational frequency is shifting.
Beautiful. So beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you, my temple. Thank you to Laura Ann. And also, you can see on Vimeo a first pre-cut of the film that we do, Gabriella and me, you, my temple, and also Deepak. It's a pre-cut because with Gabriella, this is a film, I Am Never Alone, the film for suicide prevention. It just the cost of a coffee, $4 at Starbucks. And you can see this pre-cut on Vimeo. But Gabriella and me, we are producing the real version of the film. It will be ready in a few weeks. But you can have a great sample of the film with Never Alone. Thank you so much to you, my temple. Thank you so much to you, my Natalie.
Thank you so much for enlightening us. So nice to have a lot of women on our show.
Yes.
It's nice.
I am so lucky.
You are, Michel.
You are.
To have you in my life. I love each of you. And thank you, Natalie, to be a pioneer.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you guys.
It's so great. Natalie, thank you for all your research, all what you do. I am sure with Gabriella, we would like to host you another time. We have too much. We have a list of questions for you. It's and to make the bridge with you, Temple. It's exceptional to have a spiritual leader concrete. Very, very, very concrete.